Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Product Led Festival. It's great to have you with us once again for this next session. We are very much looking forward to this one. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Just before we jump into it, just a reminder, if you haven't already, you can join our Slack community, which has got over 7,500 product managers and product-led growth pros in there. So come and join us. It's completely free to take part in the Slack community. Go to productledalliance.com to find out how to do that. While you're there, check out all the other resources, check out the membership. There's loads of stuff on there that will help you in your day-to-day. So be sure to give that a good look. Now, just a reminder, we do have time for questions at the end of every session, including this one. So just drop your questions into the chat. You don't need to wait until the end. You can just put them in there now or as you think of them, and we will tackle them towards the end of the session. Without any further ado, I am going to get on with the next session. So I'll invite our speaker to join me on stage while I introduce her. So we are very lucky to have with us Hedden Zhang, who is Director of Product Management at Common Room. And Hedden is going to be talking all about using NLP, AI, and ML, machine learning, to surface what's most important to your product users in real time. So I'll hand straight over to you, Hedden.
Perfect. Thanks for the intro, James. And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the session. So as James mentioned, my name is Hedon Zhang, and I'm a director of product at Common Room. So let me switch over to the slides. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Common Room is an intelligent community growth platform. So we help companies like Figma, HubSpot, and DBT Labs drive community and product-led growth. And so today we're going to be talking about user communities. And so given this audience, I'm sure a lot of folks on the call today either have a thriving community of users for your product, or maybe you yourself might be part of a community for a product that you love, or maybe both. And so if anyone on the call is part of a user community that you really love, feel free to drop it in the chat, maybe share a little bit about why you love the community. For me personally, I'm part of the Duolingo user community on Reddit. So I love the funny stories, the memes, the tips, and the encouragement from fellow users from Duolingo, from fellow users of the Duolingo app when it comes to maintaining my daily streak or, just general fun. And so fundamentally, what I really love about this community is the types of conversations taking place there. I always feel like I have a place to go if I want to learn more about how others are using the Duolingo app and maybe share some tips of their own. So, if there's one idea that I want you to remember throughout this session and maybe take away from this session, it's that the conversations taking place in your user community matter. And so, as a product leader, it's important to listen in and learn from these conversations taking place. So, specifically, we're going to be talking about how you, as a product leader, can apply AI powered natural language processing and machine learning to learn in real time what matters the most to your users based on the conversations that are taking place within your user community. And before I jump into it, I would be remiss if I didn't do a quick shout out to the community whose conversations helped inspire this talk. So I'm part of the CHAOS community, which stands for the Community Health Analytics Open Source Software Community. And so they do a podcast called Chaos Cast, where I had the privilege recently of chatting with their team about some of what we're going to be talking about during the talk today. So if folks want to learn more about product and community-led growth, feel free to check out that community as well as the podcast. Alrighty, so throughout this session, if you have any questions about what I'm talking about, or if you have any in-the-moment reactions, feel free to engage in the chat and, feel free to just, let us know how you feel. And so with that, we're gonna go into a little bit of the broader backdrop to all of this. So today we're seeing big shifts in terms of how software is getting developed, in terms of how software is getting adopted, and ultimately, why we're all here in terms of driving how software purchase decisions and usage decisions are being made. And so what we're seeing is the modern day software buyer isn't so much about talking to a sales rep first or getting wined and dined at a nice steak dinner in terms of influencing what software they choose to buy and use. Instead, we're seeing users want to try the product before they buy. Maybe they want to check out what their peers are saying in terms of whether the product is useful, maybe what's less useful. They want to share their best practices in terms of how to unlock value from the product with other users. And then ultimately, they want to sit closer to having a seat at the table. They want to be able to influence the product roadmap by directly engaging with product leaders like ourselves. And so, what we're increasingly seeing is that software buyers are turning to user communities as a way to accomplish all of this. And so, with the explosion of digital channels that we're seeing in recent years, what we're seeing is these user communities are more networked than ever before. And so, what that means is users are choosing to go online to all of these digital channels and choosing to have conversations with fellow users in order to discover new use cases, troubleshoot any issues, and share any best practices. And so, for many years, that online place that for many users, that online place that they're going to is this user community. The user community is at the heart of unlocking value for users so that they can make more informed product purchase decisions. So, how can you take advantage of your user community? And so the thing about these user communities that we've noticed is they aren't just taking place in your own channels, right? What we're seeing is user communities are taking place everywhere where your users natively live. And so at Common Room, we've seen some of our customers have users who are used to using Slack every day, and they like to engage in live conversations via Slack. Some of our customers, especially I would say for more of the developer-facing tools, have users who have maybe spent a lot of their career on Stack Overflow, whether maybe they were in college and trying to get some best practices there. And what they do is throughout the whole span of their career, they're continuing to talk about the products that they use and answer questions about the products that they use via Stack Overflow. And then some of our customers have users who like to go on Reddit, maybe for personal purposes, but then they also like to go on Reddit and engage via a pseudonym and talk to fellow users of the products they're using that way. And actually, here I do want to share a little bit of a personal anecdote. So, during a recent product launch, I reached out to one of Common Room's users, one of our users via Slack DM to check out how things were going with them, see if I can help with anything. And their response in the moment was, "Hey, I literally just tweeted about you guys. Go check out my tweet." And so I run to Twitter, and luckily for me, it was a glowing tweet. But I'm sure a lot of us have also been on the opposite end of that, where maybe a user tweets a not so glowing tweet about you, maybe about a product bug, and it's all hands on deck from your team. And so, as a product leader, the exciting and kind of sometimes overwhelming thing about your user community is the fact that they're having conversations with you everywhere where they live digitally. And I mean, overall, anytime someone talks about my product, I'm excited that they care. And as a product leader, it's important to me to stay on top of all of the conversations taking place about my product. So that's where Common Room comes in. And so, as I mentioned, Common Room is an intelligent community growth platform. So, we help companies achieve product led growth by harnessing the power of their communities. So, we help you deepen your relationships with your users. We help you build better products by learning faster from your users. And ultimately, we help you drive business impact for your organization as well as for your users at large. And so, as you can see here, there is a whole lot that Common Room can do to support your company's product led growth. But given the audience today and given the limited time, I wanted to focus on three product specific use cases. So you, as a product leader, can get the most out of the conversations taking place in your user community because they matter. So today, we're going to be talking about how you can use Common Room's natural language processing, artificial intelligence, and machine learning to quickly learn from your users. So first, we're going to be discussing how you can get a measure of how your users are feeling in the moment when it comes to product launches. We're also going to be discussing how you can more effectively prioritize product resources as a product leader based on listening to what matters the most to your users. And then we're going to discuss how you can identify product innovation partners within your user communities based on what your users are saying. And so we'll start with the product launches one. Many of us, I'm sure, work in the technology space. And one of the beautiful and inevitable realities, I would say, about the technology space is how quickly things change, especially when it comes to product releases. And sometimes when you're in the thick of a product launch, it can feel like total chaos, right? Leading up to it, you might have lots of late nights or early mornings, maybe some weekend work. We've all been there. And frankly, you might have lots and lots of caffeine to fuel you leading up to the day of. And I don't know about folks on this call, but I have personally never been through a product launch which did not include at least one last minute unexpected bug that the team had to scramble and fix. So, in the midst of all of this chaos, as you're trying to launch a product, when someone asks you during a product launch, so how did things go? How are your users feeling? And you kind of think about it and you're trying to scramble through your head in terms of figuring out exactly how your users are feeling and trying to give an accurate answer. And then you get the dreaded follow-up question of, no, but really, how are your users feeling? And are you sure? And the reality of any product launch, as folks on the call likely know, is the answer isn't always immediately evident. In the moment, when you're going off of just a few customer anecdotes, maybe some product analytics, and frankly, a bunch of caffeine, it's hard to answer that question with confidence in terms of how your users are feeling. And so the good news is there's an easy way to get a quantified answer to that question. And so at Common Room, we provide automatic sentiment tracking on your user communities so you can get a sense of how your users are feeling in real time. And so what you're seeing here is an anonymized version of Common Room's sentiment over time chart. So we track the volume of positive and negative sentiment in the conversations taking place in your user community. And so in general, we encourage you to use user sentiment as a directional tool. And so we recommend keeping an eye out for the major changes or the spikes in sentiment, if you will, which can signal a meaningful change in how your users are feeling. And ultimately, that indication could be something that you either want to learn from or maybe you want to take action on. And so what you're seeing here on this slide, this is actually when Common Room became generally available earlier this year. So as you can see, I'm happy to report that we had a big spike in positive sentiment within our user community during that time frame when we were launching. And so what we've seen for our own community, as well as other product communities, is that your user community is often the first to get excited when you have an awesome product launch. In fact, they're often even more excited than you are when it comes to your product launch. And they're often the first to uplift you and the team for all of your hard work leading up to the launch. Now, on the other hand, we've also seen instances when user communities are the canary in the coal mine. And to quote one of our customers, your user community is also the first to cast a stone if they feel like perhaps your product or your company is not living up to their expectations because your users care so much. And so one of the most common instances of user communities being that canary in the coal mine is on the other side of the spectrum, product outages. So when you have an outage, your power users are typically the first to notice the outage. And often their first move is to go to your user community and maybe check with other users to see if this is happening to anyone else, if this is a major issue. So rather than filing the support ticket, really your user community is kind of the first place that people are talking about any issues. And actually in this example, you can sort of see where the outage happened. So if you see this little inside this chart, you see that initial small but noticeable increase in negative sentiment. And it becomes even more noticeable here when you see the positive and negative sentiment cross. And so what that means is now suddenly we have more negative sentiment conversations in your community compared to positive sentiment conversations. So that's when you as a product leader need to be extra mindful and extra responsive and try to really quickly resolve the issue. Otherwise, the issue might balloon into, unfortunately, something even worse, like what you're seeing here. And so over time, you're going to eventually recover, but ultimately, the longer it takes to recover, the more trust and the more credibility you risk as a product leader. Now, what if I told you that product outages may sometimes be a good thing? And so product outages themselves aren't awesome, but we've also seen situations where companies responded super quickly to the outage and had a very quick recovery, as shown by their negative and positive sentiment spiking up at the same time, and then recovering very quickly and actually gaining more trust with their community. And so in this case, because the responsiveness as well as the recovery was so quick, the brand actually got some brownie points with their user community. And so ultimately, their sentiment recovered to normal levels very quickly, as you're seeing here. And in fact, they probably gain even more credibility with their users going forward, given, given some of these bring you closer to your community, and you've demonstrated a level of trust. And so the next time you have a product launch, and hopefully not too often a product outage, and you're not quite sure how your users are feeling, feel free to use common room sentiment over time charts to measure how your users are feeling about the launch or the outage in real time. Now, another use case that Common Room has helped product leaders with is prioritization. So this is something I hear from every product leader. From a prioritization perspective, where and how as a product leader should I be investing? And so often we're asked to prioritize from multiple angles within the product organization. And so there's the often heard, I would say, what product should I invest in, A, B, or C, right? And then there's just as important the other question of what type of investment should that be? Should it be bug fixes? Should this be feature enhancements? And also, the type of investment doesn't always have to be related to a code update, right? There are lots of levers to pull as a product leader. So maybe the investment is more on the enablement side. So maybe I need to invest in training up my support teams in a given area, or maybe I need to update my docs to be clearer so that my users understand what's going on by reading the docs, and I'm proactively deflecting their questions. And so the beauty of having a user community is they're having these conversations in real time about their questions, about the things that matter to them. And so you have the ability to listen in to those different signals so that you can figure out what matters to your users as well as what actions to take. And so at Common Room, we've developed a few AI powered models. And so we have an intent based category model, which detects a user's overall intent within a given community conversation. And then we also have a more specific topic model, which detects the more specific details of what your users are asking about. And so using these two models together, you're able to listen for both your users' overall intent in terms of what they need, as well as the specifics of what your users care about. All right, so we're going to start off with Common Room's intent-based category model. And so in partnership with lots of different product and community leaders within the technology space, we've trained up a machine learning model to identify a variety of intent-based categories to help you identify as a product leader what are the most common and actionable intents within your user communities and how often is each occurring. And so you can see here a few examples of our category model. So let's say a customer makes a feature request or reports a product bug. So as a product leader, that's useful input to signal how I might want to invest my engineering, product, and design resources. Or Let's say one or more customers had similar questions in terms of how the product works. So, in addition to answering the question in the moment, you also have an opportunity to see if you might be able to update your docs so that you can more proactively help your users answer that question in the future. And so, in addition to understanding your user's high level intent, like you're seeing in this slide, we also recognize that for an intent to be truly actionable, you need to know specifically what your users are talking about so that you can know who can own that next step. So, for example, when your users mention a product bug, it's important to know what product the bug is for, right? So that you can assign it to the right engineering team. And it would also be valuable to understand which specific product areas your users are asking the most questions about so that you know, as a product leader, where you might need to invest in enablement. And so, with Common Room's AI powered topic model, you're able to automatically detect the topics that your users specifically talk about. And so with the topics model, you can track specific mentions of different elements of your user's experience, whether it's different product areas or even something as simple as a login screen, as you're seeing down here. This is all useful information to help inform ultimately what areas your users care about so that you can make the right investments as a product leader. And so we encourage you to use the categories and topics models together. So with categories, you can recognize the high level intent in terms of what your users need and the type of investment needed. And then with topics, you can identify the specific area which requires prioritization so that you know what are the next steps and who should own them. So you can see here in this example, the user Jane Smith is talking about a feature request and specifically for the whiteboard product. So, as a product leader for this collaboration product, I know that this is a useful input for me to perhaps consider for my product roadmap. All right, so next we're going to go into our third use case of getting even deeper in terms of engaging product users. So, I'm sure within this audience, a lot of folks have experience launching relatively new and relatively large products, and it can be a little bit terrifying, right? And at least in my experience, finding the right product innovation partners within my user base made a world of a difference in terms of iterating and improving the product quickly. And so during our recent launch of Common Room's integration with HubSpot, we were immediately able to identify and respond to a member of our user community who is potentially interested in the integration. So using Common Room's product question category and HubSpot topic, we were able to quickly surface up the intent in real time. So what you're seeing here is actually the exact conversation between myself and this user with their name and avatar anonymized. And so with Common Room, I was able to instantaneously confirm where this individual worked, what his role is, and check out his historical community activity to make sure that I had full context about his different use cases before I reached out. And then from there, I added this user to our HubSpot integration innovations partner segment in Common Room so that we can track our partnership and progress over time. And so this user ended up not only giving us great product feedback about his company's different use cases for integrating HubSpot with Common Room, but he also gave us really useful pricing feedback, especially as we took the product to market with other customers. So for today, we've talked about how the conversations in your user communities matter and how Common Room's AI-powered natural language processing can help you identify insights from your user communities in real time. So specifically, we talked about measuring the success of a product launch through sentiment in Common Room. We talked about how using categories and topics within Common Room can help you figure out what to prioritize and how to invest. And we also talked about how you can use Common Room to identify which users to engage with as innovation partners. And so that actually takes me to our fourth, and I promise our last use case for today. And so as product leaders, I'm sure a lot of folks can relate. It's not all about us doing everything, right? It's about the amazing teams that we work with every day because product development is the ultimate team sport. And so what's the point of all of this fancy NLP and AI and ML that we've talked about today if your team doesn't have access to these insights? And so the good news is with team alerts in Common Room, you can notify your team in real time when your users surface relevant product appreciation, feature requests, or product questions about any given product area. And so, actually, going back to that personal anecdote of the user who tweeted about our product launch, that actually was the HubSpot innovation partner, HubSpot integration innovation partner that I was discussing earlier. So, when I reached out to my team to let them know about this tweet, they actually said, "Oh yeah, we saw." And the reason they saw was because they all had access to Common Room's internal Wall of Love Slack channel powered by Common Room, as you can see here. And so, with this, our team was notified in real time about this user's feedback. And so, as much as I, as a product leader, could have tried to relay this, seeing these words firsthand in real time was more powerful for the team than anything I could have relayed secondhand. All right. So, going back to where we began, I hope by now you'll agree with me that the conversations taking place within your user community really matter. And it's important for you as a product leader to listen in and learn from your users. And with Common Room's AI powered natural language processing, you're able to do all of this in an intelligent as well as an automated way. And so, if you want to learn more about Common Room, feel free to follow us on Twitter, or in true product led fashion, feel free to sign up for one of our free trials via our website. All right, so with that, thanks everyone for your time, and we're going to move over to the Q&A.
Absolutely, that's right. Thank you very much, Hedan. That is a really interesting presentation. I really enjoyed that, so I'm sure our audience did as well. We do have a few questions already, but if you would like to ask your question to Hedan, please pop that into the chat, and we'll get through as many as we can in the about 3.5, 4 minutes we've got left. So we'll try and get as many as possible. So the first one was from Chris. So thank you, Chris. Chris said, how do you balance customers' privacy and trust when looking at their conversations? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, Chris. So at Common Room, we do take privacy and trust really seriously. And so early on in our product development, we actually made sure that we were in compliance with, we were SOC 2 compliant, and then also compliant with GDPR. So, we do take that really seriously in terms of security and privacy. And also, one call out here is a lot of these conversations that we're pulling in. The good news is they're happening in public forums, right? So they're happening on Twitter, they're happening on Reddit. So this is all information that is already publicly accessible. Hopefully that's helpful.
Absolutely, that's great. And the next one I can see here we have from Ennius. Apologies if I pronounced that incorrectly, but they say, can customers at Common Room list their own topics to detect in their communities?
Great question, Ania. So we have a few ways this is supported. So first of all, we support keyword listening via all of the different sources that we integrate with. So Twitter, Reddit, etc., where it's applicable. And then separately, our topics model is actually pretty intelligent. So we've seen a lot of times customers, they might want to track their own topics when they start perhaps using Common Room, but then they jump over to the topics page and they see that the topic has already been auto-detected. And so in those cases, it's like essentially the specification upfront often isn't required because that information is already being detected.
That's great, really impressive. And there's a really interesting one here that is, given the community or developer relations team is often directly responsible for managing the community day to day, how do you view product management's role in the context of community?
Great question. And I really, like this question too, because it gets at how, product development is the ultimate team sport. And so at Common Room, and what we've seen a lot with our customers too, is, product will play like a helping hand within the community. And so within Common Room's Uncommon community, it's a blend of a community of practice for community leaders, as well as a community of product. And we have dedicated product channels where product leaders can engage with community members in order to make sure they're getting the help that they need, but also making sure that the community manager is the person, or the DevRel team, they're the folks kind of leading the charge with the community.
Great, excellent. Unfortunately, that's about all the time we have, I'm afraid. But thank you so much again, Hedan. I really enjoyed it, and some great questions from the audience there as well. So thank you to those questioners as well. And all that's left to say is we're going to move on to the next session in about 15 minutes. Head back to the agenda, and you can click through. If you'd like to follow up, do check out Common Room on Twitter. I'm sure, Hedan, you don't mind if they connect with you on LinkedIn, or give Common Room a try.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, James.
Thank you.